Inside the Mind, the Cognitive Approach. The learning objectives that we have for the cognitive approach are to understand the cognitive approach and why this perspective to explain the topic. It's also to discuss the cognitive approach and how it explains road rage incidents, and to describe how fights at school can be explained through the cognitive perspective. It's also to give examples on how gang-related violence can be described through the cognitive approach and to explain how the cognitive approach is effective with these violent acts and provide personal thoughts on the violence that it creates. And as well as, last but not least, a final summary of topics that were covered. So what is the cognitive approach? The cognitive approach is a way of understanding behavior by looking at how people think. It focuses on how our thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of situations that affect how we act. In other words, the cognitive approach says that how we think about a situation affects how we respond to it. If someone interprets a situation as threatening or disrespectful, that they may act aggressively, or even if it wasn't the other person's intention. So why the cognitive approach? We chose the cognitive approach because violent acts such as school fights, gang-related violence, and road rage are often linked to the way individuals think and interpret the world around them. These behaviors don't usually happen randomly, but they stem from the patterns of distorted thinking, misreading social cues, and difficulty controlling emotional impulses. So, for example, a driver experiencing road rage might interpret a simple traffic mistake as a personal attack and respond aggressively. Or a gang member may feel the need to react violently to protect their reputation based on learned beliefs about respect and loyalty. Someone involved in a school fight also might assume another student is trying to disrespect them, even if that's not the case. I believe that the cognitive approach is one of the most effective ways to understand violent behavior because it looks beyond the actions and focuses on what's actually happening in the person's mind. When we take the time to understand why someone thinks the way they do or acts the way they do, especially in situations that lead to violence, we have a better chance of helping them change.
Are completely at random. Fights in school are quite common all throughout America, making it harder for both teachers and educators to stop this behavior. Kids may also choose to fight their teacher usually over a dispute about a punishment or form of detention, causing them to rebel and either physically or verbally fight with them. Bullying, on the other hand, is a much more nuanced, as there are multiple different forms of this type of violence. And not only that, but this specific act may cascade into worse, more dangerous territories. Cyberbullying is where someone from the victim's school is able to contact them through the internet, and the result being the child bullied over verbally online. The dangers of these two types of bullying are that they can either potentially cause the victim to significant harm or cause the victim to retaliate with a more dangerous form of violence. As stated previously, bullying may cause a child to fight back in a more aggressive and fatal manner. This could either mean bringing weapons such as knives, guns onto school grounds with the intention of severely harming the bully or even anyone else around them. Psychologists conclude that both cyberbullying and in-person bullying have been major contributors to school shootings in America throughout the years. There are a multitude of detrimental effects of school violence on adolescents, including mental and learning problems, language impairments, and cognitive disabilities. This type of violence disrupts a child's ability to mentally grow and mature, in making them more likely to abuse partners and friends in the future. Taking a cognitive approach to school violence, analyzing this form from the cognitive perspective, some kids may either have an experience, a belief, or a thought process that made them believe that violence was the best way to resolve a conflict in school. An experience a child could have witnessed was a school fight that didn't involve them, which, watching it occur, the child was suddenly making an inference on what to do when there is dispute between peers, possibly making them come to the conclusion that they should start a fight with someone. A belief could be that if a child grows up in a household where fights are the only way to resolve a conflict, quote, you always have to be the winner of an argument, unquote, concept A child may carry this belief into the school setting, causing them to either bully or cause violence to solve a conflict. Similarly to a belief, a thought process may also be that they either want to show, or they want to show that they are strong because they feel as though they are inadequate. Watching them act on insecurity and false confidence, and making them put others down in the process by fighting or bullying weaklings. Especially in men, a child may grow up in a household where they cannot be vulnerable or properly express their emotions, as they could be seen as emasculating, leading them to bottle up their feelings until they boil up to the surface. In turn, a child may target or start bullying another, often more low confidence individual, because they now have nowhere else to express their feelings. Objective 3, the causation of road rage. Road rage or road aggression refers to when a driver comes across a disruption caused by someone or something on the road, which makes them act on this convenience with aggression. Psychologists explain that road rage can be caused from external factors, such as someone not putting their blinker on it or cutting them off when switching lanes. However, internal factors may be more detrimental, as they are internally brought upon rather than having an external source having an effect on this person. These psychologists go on to explain that even just having a bad day at work or a unhappy marriage may already put them at an aggressive mood, causing one minor disturbance on the road to be their breaking point. Psychologists also go on to explain that mental health plays a big role in how a specific person who is behind the wheel responds to things on the road. And that if a driver has previously been diagnosed with mental disorders, anger issues, or stress, can make it more likely that they will be involved in a road rage accident. It has also been researched that young men are more likely to participate in road aggression. This including driving well over the speed limit, driving more recklessly, and inciting physical altercation with another driver. They also conclude that this could be because of the lack of emotional intelligence or emotional maturity. The detrimental effects of this kind of aggression causes many critical and fatal accidents, such as rear ends, T-bones, and hand-to-hand violence. And the number of accidents are continuing to rise as road rage becomes more accepted and commonly practiced. Taking a cognitive approach to road rage. Analyzing this form in the cognitive perspective, some people who engage in aggressive behavior on the road may have had an experience, belief, or thought process that had them arrive to this conclusion. An experience could have been a driver being cut off and not being able to reach his or her exit on the highway, causing them to have to get off on another one. And in turn, this causes the driver to become increasingly aggressive or hostile to the driver in their way. A belief that the driver may have is that the only way to get to their destination is if you show people that you are aggressive on the road. That could have been a belief that was passed down through generations, which caused them to never stray from that. Similarly to a belief, a thought process may be a person that thinks that they will miss his or her turn if they don't pick up speed and switch lanes quickly to cut a person off. Another potential assumption is that a driver in their head is a person who cut them off and who is doing an action out of spite, intentionally out of spite, or narcissism, or disregard for anyone else.
Objective 4, the causation of gang violence. What is gang violence? Gang violence is criminal acts of violence often involving intimidation and aggression by members or a group. Gangs use violence for dominance, control over territory, and to further criminal activity. Gangs operate around the world. Gangs engage in many crimes such as drugs, robbery, human, and gun trafficking. They engage in violence often to establish their rules and settle disputes. Gang violence leads to physical injuries, psychological traumas, and death. What are causations of gang violence using cognitive perspective. The cognitive perspective in gang violence can be how people perceive, interpret, and process information around their environment. It focuses on mental processes like beliefs, thoughts, and attitudes. Examples: they view the world negatively as us versus them. No one understands what their battle is. Everyone who disagrees is the enemy. Many gangs think it is the only way to survive or the only way to go. They may also rationalize their actions by saying they were provoked. Violence is a way for them to cope with frustrations. They believe that using violence will gain respect and power. They also believe that violence is the solution to their problems. Other reasons why some people can be drawn to gang violence are because of adrenaline and thrill-seeking behavior. People are also seeking a sense of belonging, and because of childhood traumas and experiences, it can influence joining a gang as a coping mechanism. Some factors that contribute to gang violence are lack of access to education and work, poverty, social isolation, and cultural and societal norms where violence is normalized. The cognitive perspective of gang violence plays a big role with how they think, feel, and react.
Objective 5: Conclusions and Insights. The cognitive approach was successful in explaining the ways in which mental processes and thought patterns fuel violence. It emphasizes how people see, understand, and react to social circumstances, and can aid in the explanation of violent outbursts. For instance, someone may mistake another person's actions as threatening due to hostile bias or skewed thinking. This demonstrates how internal mental processes as observed to merely external events and frequently the source of violence. Yes, the way that cognitive processes affect violence has much to teach Western civilization. Violence may be decreased by acknowledging the ways in which stress, social settings, and media influences people's thoughts. Cognitive emotional control education may help people respond more logically. Comprehending the function of cognitive biases and thought patterns may help lessen miscommunications and distributes, particularly in a culture that values individualism and where people frequently behave based on their perceptions. I now understand the importance of self-awareness and mind control in preventing aggressive behavior after studying aggressiveness from a cognitive standpoint. I now recognize how my personal perceptions of events can affect my response. I can now lessen my chance of acting aggressively by controlling my thoughts and changing the way I perceive things. I am now more conscious of my thoughts and how I react to other people as a result of this. Cognitive biases that influence aggression. Hostile attribution bias. This is where someone assumes others have bad intentions even if their actions were neutral, leading to unnecessary aggression. Confirmation bias. People may only focus on actions that confirm their beliefs that others are out to get them, which fuels anger. Mental shortcuts. Under stress, the brain takes shortcuts like labeling someone as rude or threatening without full evidence. These thought patterns show how cognitive processing can escalate minor events into acts of aggression. Objective 6: Summarize. The cognitive approach explains behavior by focusing on people's thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of events shape their action. Violent or aggressive behavior by revealing how distorted thinking or past experiences influence how people perceive threats or disrespect. This perceptive allows for better understanding and possibly changing harmful reactions by addressing the thinking behind the behavior. Objective 6: Continued expanding the summary. The cognitive method expands on the notion that beliefs and thoughts influence behavior by concentrating on how individuals may alter their thought patterns. People can learn to more calmly reframe their aggressive ideas if they realize that they come from incorrect thinking. By slowing down and considering the situation first, this helps avoid overreactions like screaming or fighting. To put it briefly, knowing how you think helps you better regulate how you behave, particularly when things are stressful or upsetting. And then the references.